with his 5-minute right of reply, the honourable member for Guelph.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And as I said, and my colleagues have encouraged me to repeat, that I did give it a great deal of thought before I put forward this bill. I did want to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the bill I would put forward would have an impact on the lives of Canadians and also be something that members from all parties could indeed come together and support. For those reasons, it was my great pleasure to introduce this bill that will establish Service Canada as the single point of contact relating to the death of a Canadian citizen or resident. The death of a loved one is not an easy time for any of us, so I am certainly glad to put forward a non-partisan bill that would create a practical, compassionate approach to helping Canadians through a very difficult time. And I am grateful to all MPs who've contributed so constructively to this debate, especially the Minister of State for Social Development, whose genuine interest and collaboration were essential. Also, I thank the members for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou, St. Lambert, Cape Breton Canso, Brant, Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, Don Valley East, Sherbrooke, Charlottetown, Markham Unionville, the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of State for Social Development, and the member from Okanagan-Shuswap. And with reference to the remarks made by the member from Markham Unionville, indeed, this idea, with all humility, was not my own. It was, in fact, the idea of Brian Wilford, who first brought the idea before Parliament but didn't have the opportunity to navigate it through this House. What I've heard from Canadians, industry stakeholders, and members alike is clear. The existing system for notifying the federal government of the death of a Canadian citizen or permanent resident can and must be improved. The program must be made more efficient for the grieving family on the one end, who should only have to tell government once of a death, and in the interests of the government on the other. The process of notifying all the necessary government authorities when a loved one passes away can be tedious, confusing, and sometimes overwhelming. But it is also an often painful process at a very sensitive time. It is a disservice to everyone when Canadians are unaware of what processes currently exist, preventing them from receiving adequate service and assistance while bereaved. What this bill accomplishes by establishing a single point of contact at Service Canada is the removal of uncertainty and confusion for family members and estate administrators. Similarly, as a public policy gain, I believe that it would modernize service delivery, reduce duplication, and thereby reduce costs. As was said by the member from Charlottetown, a similar system in the United Kingdom, Tell Us Once, has saved $300 million over 10 years. What I've heard from my colleagues and their comments here in the House and elsewhere is that these are common sense changes, and this is a common sense piece of legislation that they would like to see succeed regardless of political stripe. That doesn't mean there cannot be changes made. Some speakers highlighted areas of the bill which could use some modification, and I'm pleased to say that I've begun work with the government on ways we can strengthen this bill to ensure all parties can support it. If passed at second reading, I look forward to a fulsome discussion on this bill at committee and remain open to amendments to ensure this bill remains consistent with existing legislation while ensuring that the government continues to move forward in implementing a secure process by which government departments are promptly informed and these departments promptly respond when a Canadian passes away. I've said before that I would like MPs to hear public servants on how they would implement this bill and whether they feel that 1 year, as stipulated in this legislation, is a reasonable time to implement the required changes, or if more time is needed. In closing, we have before us an opportunity to make a real difference for Canadians. It may not be glamorous, but it is truly important and practical. It is my sincere hope that all members of Parliament support sending this bill to committee for further review and the discussion of any necessary changes. I thank everyone for their participation in the debate of this issue, stakeholders like the Funeral Service Association of Canada for their information and intervention, and for each of my constituents and Canadians across the country who contacted me with their questions and support of this bill. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.